everyone, I'm feeling extremely excited to be interviewing the extraordinary Meg Caddy again. Meg is an incredible author. She has a BA in English Literature and History from the University of Western Australia and has finished her honours dissertation on pirates. She is also a legendary dungeon master who is responsible for my D&D addiction. Is a gorgeous mentor and a huge inspiration to me personally, so this interview is incredibly special to me. I think Meg is inspirational not just because of her brilliant writing talent and her amazing mentorship, but also because of her workshops she put on to help kids improve our writing and inspire us because of her wonderful representation of diverse characters in her brilliant books. Meg, thank you so much for letting me grow you again.
Thank you for having me again. I'm really excited.
I'm ready to get started.
Yes, let's go.
Completely unrelated to your work, you are the person who's responsible for my D&D addiction. And thank you. Who has been your favourite character to play and why?
I have a character at the moment called Armour Grey, and she's a human fighter, and the subclass of that is a gunslinger. So, in our Dungeons and Dragons party, she's the only one who doesn't use magic. So everyone else uses magic, and she's the only one who's a human. So we've got lots of good balance there, and she's quite a serious character, whereas the other characters are quite fun and flamboyant. She also has a -2 charisma, so no one likes her, and that's really fun to play. So she's a character we've been playing for almost 2 years now, I think,
Wow.
which is just so much fun. You get really stuck into the character.
Yeah, you always have to like that one character where it's like you bond with them. Mostly because they're just fun to play, like they're completely opposite to you. But that's fun.
Absolutely. And I've got a really good party as well. Like we all the characters are really well balanced, and we all really enjoy like the character discussions, not just the combat, but actual, character development and sort of the plot that comes aside from the combat. So we've got a really good group.
Oh, that's awesome. Following up from that, if you could bring any pet to a D&D adventure, what would you bring? And what would its unique skills or talent be?
So this is difficult because when you're playing D&D, often if you bring in a pet, that pet stands a risk of dying. So it's always a bit of a hazard. When I first started playing Dungeons and Dragons, my character had a pet raccoon called Kevin, and he had armour, and my character was a halfling, so he was about half the size of her and just sat on her shoulder. Yeah, so I think raccoon is still like a really enjoyable pet to have, but it is really dangerous to have a pet in D&D.
You gotta put armour on him.
You have to, yeah.
Otherwise it's gonna die.
There is so much risk.
Like if you're gonna have a baby dragon, you have to put armour on your baby dragon.
Exactly.
Especially if it's a baby.
Baby dragons would be like a little hardier and probably like less likely to
die, but
yeah,
just in case.
Yeah,
you want to
just
protect
in case.
your pet. You're part of you. Now, onto your incredible books. I loved both of them so much, but I want to focus on Devil's Ballast this time.
Okay.
Where did the inspiration for this book come from?
Well, I've been pirate mad since I was about 4 years old. I love pirates, and I always have. And I knew when I was about 18 that I was going to write a pirate book. So I did a lot of research for it, and I was in England at the time, so I went around and looked at lots of different ships. And then I started narrowing it down to I wanted to look at female pirates, because I find feminist works very important, and I think it's really important to write about women who were in different spheres to how people would have expected, especially historically. And so I stumbled across Anne Bonny, and hers was a really interesting story because it didn't really have an ending. No one really knows what happened to her. She sort of disappeared from history, and I thought, oh, this is something I want to write. and that's how it started, really. And did a lot of research, went around America and the Bahamas, went back to England and did some research in London, spoke to piratologists, and it's sort of unfurled from there, really. Anne's a very strong-minded character. Once she sort of was there in my mind, she took on a will of her own and never shuts up.
Well, she's definitely strong, and I love that about her. I love the fact that she never was, she never let her past define her.
Yeah.
I loved that.
She likes to sort of keep moving.
Yeah. Moving onwards.
Yeah.
I despise James Bonny. I'm just going to put that out there. Like, I despise him.
Good, then I've done my job.
Yes. I loved how brilliant you wrote him, because you just made him the most hateable character in the book.
Thank you.
It was brilliant.
I'm glad you hated James Bonny.
Who would you say you have to relate to the least?
Who I relate to the least? That's a really interesting one. Weirdly, in some ways, Anne, at some points at least. When I first started writing about Anne, my anxiety was really bad, and Anne is the least anxious person ever. She doesn't have an anxious bone in her body. So writing about Anne was a really interesting experience to try and say, okay, I would not do any of these things. What is the opposite of what I would do in this situation? There we go, that's Anne. So in a lot of cases, I don't relate as much to Anne as I do to some of the other characters. I think Calico as well. The way he handles things and the way he goes about things is very different from me. Weirdly, characters like Barnett, even though, again, very different from me, I can understand where he comes from, because it's my tendency to see things in black and white, and I have to work really hard to sort of be a more flexible thinker. That's something that I really have to work on. And Barnett is not a flexible thinker, and he doesn't work on that. So I can sort of see in a lot of ways sort of where he comes from. I think Reed as well, he's sort of more he's a bit of a steadier character. He's a character who sort of has these really close personal connections with people. He's very loyal, and so I relate to him quite closely.
Yeah, he can be quite loyal.
Yeah, and he, with Reed, sort of once he has that connection with someone, he'll do anything for them, and make sure he really protects them.
Yeah, Reed was a great character.
Thank you. I'm very fond of him.
Yes, he was amazing. I was like, yes. I loved how Devil's Ballast ended. It concluded beautifully, but also in a way left me desperately needing more, because I fell in love with the story.
Oh, thank you.
How is the next book coming? And if you can you give us any spoilers into it?
The next book, I'm in the depths of editing it at the moment. So it's at that phase where it's a bit difficult, but also sort of I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, as it were. Spoilers. Okay, it takes place in a completely different continent. We've got a whole new villain and a whole new host of allies as well, though you will see some people coming back from Devil's Ballast, even if they were like very minor characters at the time. Some of them get a little bit more spotlight, which is lots of fun. And we get to see a lot more of other characters and the way they think.
Awesome. I can't wait.
I hope that is enough without giving too much away.
Yes, that's perfect. I can't wait for it. It'll be so good.
Oh, I'll be glad when it's in a state where I can send it off. At the moment, I'm like, oh no, I don't know if this is historically accurate, and oh no, I don't know if this plot point works. It's sort of bogged down, but I think it'll be smooth soon.
I know it's going to be great. You're such a great writer.
Thank you. You're sweet.
Which scene was the most fun for you to write out of all of the books?
The scene that I most enjoyed writing was the one in Devil's Ballast where Anne deals with Sedlow. That was I was trying to figure out how to resolve the tension between these two characters, and I was talking to my friend Kristen, and she made the suggestion of how Anne deals with Sedlow, and I laughed and laughed, and then I said, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then I spent a long time researching ship toilets, and asked a lot of very awkward questions to various piratologists, and then wrote it, and I was just laughing the whole time. I really enjoyed it, and it was fun because it felt like it was very true to Anne and the way that she thinks around a problem. Yeah, so that was my favourite.
I love that scene. I was like, yes! Because it was funny. It was like he died from a toilet.
Yeah, man.
Like, that's the best way to go.
It's exactly what he deserved.
Yeah. Did you base any of your characters in Where or Devil's Ballast or people you knew, or did they just kind of pop into your head?
Not on people I knew. There were certain experiences that people I knew told me about. So, for example, Devil's Ballast has a one of the main characters is trans, and so I contacted a trans friend of mine who became a sensitivity reader for me, and helped me get those experiences right. So, Read for example, wasn't based on anyone, but there were experiences and feelings in there that came from someone's own lived experience. So I was quite careful, especially when talking about characters who have very different experiences from me, to make sure that I checked those and made sure that they were sort of true to life as much as possible. They weren't based on any people I know.
That experience.
Yeah. So, and like occasionally, you know, Anne will say something, or in what I'm writing at the moment, there's a character called Fletcher, and he'll say something, and that might be inspired by a line that someone's said or an interaction I've had with someone, but no character is fully based on someone I know, because I think there's it can be quite a difficult thing to do, you know, if you're basing it on someone real who you know, there's always a chance for offense or for doing the wrong thing, and I mean that's the case historically as well. You know, I'm writing about real historical people, and I do have to be careful when I'm doing that they're being represented as fairly and accurately as possible, even if it's historical fiction. So it's a funny balance.
Yeah, it's like you gotta try to keep your little thingy afloat.
Yeah, and just making sure that there's nothing in there that's damaging to anyone.
Yeah.
You know, that's really important to me.
Yeah, I think it's awesome that you're getting experience and, you know, really putting into it.
Yeah, I think that's important as well. You know, you want to make sure you want to make sure you're doing your research, basically, and that what you're writing feels true, so that other people can read it and enjoy it.
That's awesome. Now we're on to the speed questions.
Speed questions, alright. Hit me.
What are you writing at the moment?
I'm writing so many things at the moment. I'm writing, hopefully, a sequel to Devil's Ballast. I'm writing a book on the Pendle Witches. And I'm just starting to write something, it's in very early stages at the moment, but it's an Australian historical fiction. So, again, very early stages. I'm just sort of toying with a couple of ideas at the moment.
Awesome. Have you tried new flavored ice cream lately that you just fell in love with?
I haven't. No, I'm sort of trying to like eat a little healthier and all that sort of thing, which I'm not particularly enjoying. So I haven't had much ice cream recently, I'm afraid.
No, that's okay. I'm trying to eat healthy too.
It's the worst.
No cheese. That's the thing doing it for me. The cheese.
Oh, mine's caffeine. I really love caffeine, and I'm not having it at the moment. It's terrible.
Which book character do you or have you had a crush on?
Ooh. question. I don't know. I tend not to really crush. Can we circle back to that one? I need to think. I don't have an answer.
We can circle back.
Yeah, okay.
What was your worst subject in school?
Maths. Sport.
I don't like sport. But then again, my sport is walk, so that's pretty easy.
Yeah. Well, we had to choose, in year 11 and 12 you got to choose which sport you did. You had like a whole list. Nowhere on that list did I put golf. But I was put down for golf for 3 semesters. It was awful. I hate golf. Terrible.
Did you choose it though?
I know! It was terrible.
Ew.
It was truly terrible. Very boring.
It's just hitting the balls.
Yeah. See, like, now I quite like various sporty things. Like, I do yoga with my mum. I do, like, powerlifting, that sort of thing. I don't mind a run every now and again. But, God, in high school it was terrible. Didn't enjoy it at all.
I don't like golf either.
Yeah, that's fair.
Who was your favourite or most inspirational author this year?
Holden Shepherd.
No.
What a legend. He's fantastic and, like, such a great writer and so down to earth and lovely and friendly. Like, he's just a great person all around. And it is amazing to see, you know, I work in a bookshop, so all these people coming in and looking for invisible boys and just seeing their own experience in the book and feeling so, like, not feeling alone. It's just so incredible. So yeah, Holden is just smashing it this year. He's great.
Holden is such an amazing person.
And he's lovely.
Yeah.
You know, just like the loveliest person. Yeah.
Yeah, he's amazing. Would you prefer to be isolated on an island or in a forest?
Ooh, good question. Probably in a forest, only because I think it would be easier to find sources of fresh water.
Smart.
Yeah, whereas an island, you might be. Is it an island in the middle of the ocean or an island like in the middle of a large river? What's the deal with the island?
Let's go ocean.
I need some more information about the island.
Okay, so it's in the middle of an ocean, but it's a very large island.
Okay. Are there rivers and streams and that sort of like freshwater ones?
Let's say there's a tiny little chunk in the middle. So it has like a tiny little forest in the middle. With a spring.
Yeah, look, if there's fresh water on the island.
Then an island.
I don't know, maybe still the forest. I figure you could get out of a forest much easier. Forest.
Okay, forest.
Put me down for forest.
Forest. If you could live in any book, which one would you have to pick?
Oh. Good question. Maybe Darker Shade of Magic by Victoria Schwab. I love those books and the world is so interesting. Because there's these different sort of parallel Londons and you can travel between them. If you're like I think there's only 2 people who can travel between them. And they each have different levels of magic in them. So Red London in Victoria Schwab's books, I think, would do it, yeah.
That sounds amazing. What's the weirdest place or thing you've got inspiration from?
The weirdest place or thing I've gotten inspiration from? Oh, that's a really good question. Well, weird situation more than anything. I was in London and I was trying to find my way around, but I got hopelessly lost. And I was on my own and I was on foot. And I had like a big London map, but it was just too complicated. Like there was too much going on in it, and I couldn't really find out where I was or where I was trying to go. But I'd been researching with a map from 1720, and so I pulled that up, and because so many things in London have stayed the same, I could actually find my way around London using the map from 1720. And so weirdly, it gave me so much of an insight in how characters in London would be feeling on foot on their own without, you know, devices or anything there. Just having like an old map and being able to find my way around there. That was a really good experience. So a bit of a weird one, but that's really helped with what I'm writing at the moment.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Oh, what's your biggest achievement so far?
I don't know. I think like book 2 is a big hurdle. You know, getting the second book out was you know, because you always wonder whether the first one's just like a flash in the pan. You know, is it just like sort of a one-off? So getting the second book out sort of reinforced that I can keep on doing this, which was a really like valuable thing for me to know. That felt like a big achievement.
Yeah, it's an incredible achievement. It's an amazing book.
Thank you.
Now let's circle back to that question.
Okay.
Which book do you have you had a crush on?
I mean, look, Aragon is great. Maybe Kell from the Victoria Schwab books. But also, like, crushing isn't exactly my jam most of the time. Usually it's like I find a character that I think they're amazing, and I want to sort of read more books about them.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. I maybe Kell from Darker Shade of Magic.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of serious and grumpy, and I just find that charming.
Yeah, I like the grumpy characters though, because they're fun to read.
They're fun to read, and like in terms of D&D, they're really fun to play as well.
Yeah, like the one with minus two.
Yeah. Yeah, and our DM Jen, she's one of my best friends as well. She runs our game, and she's got all these wonderful side characters, NPCs, and a lot of them are just real grumpy people, and I love them so much.
Yes.
They're just so much fun.
It is. Why do you have to be super like perky and happy? You just put a grumpy character in this.
Well, I find it raises really interesting points of conflict as well.
Yeah.
And sort of finding out what it is that sets off different reactions and what you can do to actually form an alliance with these characters, even if they're not particularly friendly, is really interesting. It's good fun.
Yes. Do you have any advice to share with young writers?
I think at the moment, we're in a very weird time in the world, and I think it's kind of hard to be creative at the moment, right? So you sort of end up being stressed or overthinking things or being tired, getting distracted by baking sourdough. But I think at times like this, it's building resilience rather than relying just on your creativity. So I think for young writers at the moment, I think part of it is focusing on building their resilience and finding ways to keep on writing even when it's really difficult. And that's a hard thing, but a lot of it can be found in our writing community, including, a lot of it's online at the moment, but our writing community is still there, still looking after each other, which I think is really important. And I think as well, like finding what you're looking for in books as well. So, I think that could be a really good way to keep hope, to keep resilience built, and to make sure that you're just putting one word in front of another.
Brilliant advice. Thank you so much for letting me grill you.
Thank you for having me again.
Make sure to check out Meg Caddy on her social media. Buy the books because they're fantastic.
Please do.